Hello and welcome to Saltwater for the Soul. You are here with Mandee Elam and my wonderful friend, Kristian Hval. I'm so excited and honored to have him here today. We've known each other for 10 years, and it's pretty cool because now we're both in the healing arts kind of businesses and I guess just place in our lives at this time. So we have a lot to connect about and talk about. And Kristian owns his own business called Modern Tao Coaching. And I'm so excited for him to share with us a little bit about what that's all about. So, welcome, Kristian. Thanks for taking the time to be here.
Absolutely, Mandy. Thanks so much for having me. I'm happy to be here.
Yeah. Will you tell us just a little bit about yourself currently? And we can start with the Modern Tao Coaching and what that is. And then we're going to get into some of your story.
Sure, absolutely. Well, I started this coaching business because I previously I owned another business, a kombucha company here in and around Boulder, Colorado, and I was really good at that, really created an amazing product, but there was always sort of a whisper underneath. Sometimes that whisper was louder than others. And one day I woke up and I was crushed, really, really feeling depressed. And I'm not a depressed person. I've done a lot of work to get in touch with myself and heal many of my wounds. But that day, man, I woke up and I was just obliterated right off the bat.
Mm.
And I was like, man, like, what is going on? And I, was in a lot of turmoil, but I sat down for a meditation like I do most mornings. And I just asked for help. I was like, what do I got to do, man, to get myself back to a place of feeling good? What do I even got to do? It was like a big existential moment for me.
Yeah.
But the answer that I got immediately was close your business and start coaching. And at the time, I was like, I don't, okay, that's the message I'm getting. That seems like a pretty big move, but something in my heart told me that that was what I needed to do. And so I trusted that. And that day, after talking and crying to my mom and a mentor I had and my wonderful partner, Julia, I decided, you know what, this is what I'm going to do. That feels true. That feels right. And the process of closing my business took a while, but we did close. And here I am today running Modern Tao Coaching. And for me, this is all about helping people get more in touch with their spirituality, getting more in touch with their physicality. And that bridge in between is what I help them create. Taoism is very much all about being naturally you. There's no playbook
Mm.
for human life. There's no playbook for you as an individual. And I will never claim to know that I know what is best for somebody. But what I do well is help people see things that they can't see about themselves and piece together that unique puzzle that is you.
I love that. I think it's
Thank you.
beautiful. Mel
Thank you.
Robbins says that scientifically, like the odds of us being born is like one in like 400 trillion.
Yeah.
So I feel like, we are so unique in what you're doing in the service you're creating and the space you're holding ultimately for people is for them to discover that and to honor that, which is really cool.
Yes, absolutely. I believe it's our destiny each time that we're alive to figure out what we came here to do, what makes us feel alive, and what our purpose is in relation to everything else, in relation to all the people in our lives, and in relation to just the universe at large. And it's such a gift for me to be able to witness that in people and also be a part of that process. I just want to say, I think even the word coach has become quite overused
Mm.
these days. Just about anybody can become a coach. And um, if I were going to call myself something different, which I'm trying to figure out if there's a cooler, better name that suits me, um, the way I would describe it is like Odin, the Norse god of ecstasy, and he's sort of like the head of that pantheon. And Odin has one eye. He gave up one of his eyes so that he could obtain wisdom. And the way that I see that is he has one eye in the physical realm and one eye in the spiritual realm. And he sort of helps souls ferry across the troubled waters that we encounter in our life. And so that's sort of the mystical way I look at the work that I do.
I love it. I think it's fantastic. I mean, that's you got a healing arts, and certainly the people who work with me know I'm all about that in between and the ethereal stuff. And I love that you brought Odin in. And it's really cool to even to think about it that
Yeah, thank you. We're all our paths are unique. The way in which we operate in the world at our best is unique. And Odin is close to my heart because I have a Norse ancestry that I've been diving into quite a bit over these past few years. And so the symbols from that time period are really strong with me right now. And I appreciate the freedom to express that here.
Yeah, and I've been honored and lucky enough to sample some of Kristian services. And at the end of our session, he pulled a rune, and I thought that was really cool. Will you tell us a little bit more about runes? And I know that's part of your connection to all that.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, just tapping into that same story of Odin, it is said that he hung from the tree Yggdrasil, which is a tree of consciousness, if we're bringing it into present time. But he hung from that tree for 9 days and 9 nights and willingly gave up his eye to obtain the wisdom embedded in the runes. And the runes are essentially very simple symbols. They're like packets of information that contain universal aspects of our world that the ancients recognized and sort of categorized into these little symbols. So the more that you're able to tap into the symbol itself, the more information will be revealed to you. And I'm not big on divination in the sense of trying to obtain information about the future or even the past, really. I'm all about what's here right now, what's present right in front of us. And so when I pull runes, whether it's for a client or for my day or with my young daughter, it's about what energy is being called for me to focus on in this moment or this session or for this day. And in using the runes in that way, there's a lot of fruit that can be harvested in that it presents the individual with a new way of looking at what's already present.
I love that.
Yeah.
Isn't perspective such a beautiful piece to healing, like, and the runes give opportunity for shift in perspective, I feel, and opportunity for reflection. And I love it because I just feel like we're evolving into less and less words and more symbols and feelings and actions and things. So I just think it calls a lot of attention to that, which I dig.
Absolutely. I'd have to agree with you, especially being a father now, like, and witnessing a child's come out of the void into this world, like for the first almost a year, like, I'm fascinated by this idea that they don't even think in words, because how can you think in something that you haven't learned yet? So what do infants think in? I don't know, but I would imagine it's symbols and metaphors. And so I just think that's like the most primitive way of interacting with the universe. And there's so much more information that can be held within a symbol or a metaphor than just our English language, and that also is a lot of what Taoism has to do with. The Tao is essentially a word for God, for all that is, but any description of it falls short of what it actually is. Just like how it's so difficult to talk about esoteric concepts with another person, because my understanding of it, when I use my clumsy English language to try and tell you what I'm thinking, the way you interpret it is going to be so much different than the thought or the idea originated within me. Well, that's the same idea that Taoism is essentially built on. It's like how can you know and describe the unknowable? Well, you can't really. Everything that you use to describe it is only pointing at it.
I appreciate it. And I like it. I like any, because I feel like there's such, and when we talk about different levels of consciousness, right? Or like 3D, 5D, things like that, I always just think whenever we can get into a level of consciousness where there are no limits, where like anything's possible, and we can use tools or different things to help us zoom into those perspectives.
Mhm.
I think that's where we get to co-create so much magic. And that is such a beautiful and ancient tool to do that. And I think I give our ancients so much credit. And I feel like, they knew a lot of what was up for us humans to enjoy this realm and to stay present. And they gifted us tools. And I think that's a really cool one that you're using at this time.
Yes, absolutely. We've got to take note from the ancients. They knew things that we don't. Our modern society is quite distracting and surface level. And so, I've explored all kinds of traditions in my path. And right now, this is the one that feels the most resonant for me. And who knows, maybe I'll set it down and pick up something else along the way. And I encourage everybody to just follow what their interests are, because that's what the path is. You're following what speaks to you, right? And hopefully discarding the things that no longer speak to you. But it's all a learning process, right? And so I love that we've been able to connect in this way. And I'd love to hear just a little bit about your practice too, and how you help others tap into that.
Oh yeah. I'm always I call it like holding soul space often when I just hold space with another soul, another person, and clients in particular. And I feel like the most integral way for me to teach and share is often just using tools that worked for me and sharing what worked for me. And it might work for someone else, it might not, but all I can do is share usually from my own perspective or, the things that I was able to resonate with. So a lot of the tools and a lot of the things that I use are things that have just helped me on my own personal path. And so
Mm,
a lot of stuff that I like to hold soul space around are, oh man, so many different things. And you and I'll talk a lot about, we both like shadowy work and the shadow work. And
mhm,
I find that the shadow work to be more of the subconscious or unconscious things that are still impacting and controlling our lives that we're maybe not wanting to have as much control over anymore. Or wanting to maybe dance with or learn about or understand. It's often an invitation to understand ourselves on such a deeper level. And well, how did I become this way? And how come I am angry when this happens? Or how come this does trigger me? Or how come I can't get out of my own way? Or why am I self sabotaging? All these deep things that I feel like most people at the end of the day or the beginning of the day, most people just want to be like happy, healthy, seen, and heard and feel at peace.
mm,
And with our wild, crazy realm and society and what we've created, it's very distracting. And
mhm,
I do feel very much like all of our parents, even the worst of them, did the best they could to their abilities most of the time. And then that's often left us sometimes imprinted with not the most healthy self talk or images of ourselves. And that could be from our own parents, how we were raised, that could be from society, that could be from, different experiences we had with friends or family or coaches or different things like that. And we create all of these things that end up becoming our more shadowy side. And I was
mm,
sharing with like Kristian just random things, like when you realize different stuff in yourself, like I was definitely passive aggressive for a while in relationships, but I didn't know what it was or understand it. And people would tell me that sometimes, and I'd be like, and I remember my mom one time being like, "You don't have a lot of self worth right now. Like, where's your self worth?" And I was like, I was like, what are you talking about? Like, what does that even mean? And then I went on this big adventure to learn what self worth was about in my own life and in my own things. And
mm,
so, some of the tools I like to use when working with clients and with myself are number one, connecting with spirit and the angels and gratitude. Gratitude is one of the highest vibrations we can feel, I've come to learn. And it's such a healing medicine for me in so many ways. Scientifically, gratitude and anxiety actually kind of formate and reside in the same part of the brain. So if
mm,
you are focusing on gratitude when you have anxiety, it will eventually push it out. It will
mm,
eventually shift all of your energies within you because you're focusing on something that's a higher vibration. And it's also in this part of the brain. And so the more you're feeling anxious, if you can take a few deep breaths and go over a few things you're grateful for, you'll feel the energies actually shift in your body
Mhm.
because you're consciously focusing on something else. So I have all
Mhm.
these different little tools and different things that have really served me throughout. And then I try to share those a lot with my clients. And I love and believe very much in angels, and I connect and channel some energies and messages from them. And even when stuff comes through, whether it's like a past life thing or something, that's kind of profound, it always has to do with the right now moment, with the thing that the
Mhm.
soul is working on right now to evolve their own consciousness or their own journey or get their next piece of the puzzle. And then I get to be so honored to sometimes help reveal some of that stuff. So I'm very
Mhm.
blessed and honored. Sometimes angels will show me cool things. And then I love using, cards and pendulums and things like that sometimes just for confirmation and a little bit of
Mhm.
extra magic. And like you were talking about, especially with the cards, I just feel like the imagery and symbolism, like it can just, a picture says 1,000 words, right? It can just bring in so much. And I love the healing art of it. And much of the art too on many of the like tarot and oracle cards have so much like light language and coding and symbolism in it that sometimes just looking at that for people is healing.
Mhm.
So, big long answer to your question with all kinds of aspects. But overall, I like to hold soul space and I like to provide tools for people to help empower themselves as opposed to
Mhm.
enable things that are no longer serving them.
Well, I love that response, and it definitely resonates with me because I, in relation to what you said and the way that I view it, the healing path is a lot about unraveling it. You're
Mm.
unraveling your programming, you're unraveling your wounds, you're unraveling your life up until that point where you are sort of coming to terms with and changing and reprogramming those things. And then what you described afterwards was the methods and the ways that you help people handle that unraveling. And that is such an important part in the healing process. Like, if you think again just about infants, like it wouldn't last 2 days without the support from somebody else. And the same thing needs to happen on our healing path. There's a reason they call it rebirth, because as you've seen, you can't unsee. As soon as you started this healing path, you're kind of like a baby, and if you have other people who have walked on the path before you, they can support you and help you during that unraveling process.
Totally. And that's what I feel like you are, what I am, whether we call it a coach or a teacher or a guy or whatever, space holder. All we can do is say, oh, yeah, I walked there. I remember when I was kind of going through, nothing's ever exactly the same, ever
Mhm.
for any of us, as we talked about. But, some similar things. And this is what helped me. And here I can put my hand out and I can offer a hand and I can help you. Like, if you want, let's go. But only if you want to. You're the only one who can take the steps. You're the only one who can reach out and grab my hand. You're the only one who can listen to, all right, well, Mandee goes over, 5 things she's grateful for when she's, all upset going down the road. Maybe I'll try that right now because she said it works. So let me try it. Like, that's kind of how it works. Like, all this magical aha stuff happens in the real life moments. And it's using these tools when triggers and feelings or things we're wanting to co create opportunities come up. And the cool thing I think about shadow work is it's light and dark. It's an opportunity to practice these skills on the heavy and the light in
Mm.
ourselves. And we're so good at concentrating on the negative or having the down days or focusing on anger. We're not like, as a society and as a whole, we're not the best at staying in our like higher vibe or our happiness or our contentment and being like, this felt really good.
Mm.
Something I like to work on with I've had to heal in my own life, and then I have many clients who are female, who are dating, who've been through a lot, and will get insecure in dating and things, and we'll just have all these, questions and these what ifs, and oh, I didn't hear from this person at this time, or what if, I said the wrong thing, or if this comes up, and I always am like, well, what if we take a few deep breaths, and what if we just focus on all the things that happened in this relationship? And I'm not saying discount it. If something big, that's not good came up, like, okay, but right now we're focusing on things that we don't even know definitely exist. We're
Mm.
putting assumptions out there. We're creating our own suffering because we're not sure. We didn't ask for clarification. So, what if we just take a beat, take a moment, and go over some things we're grateful for? What are the 5 best things that happened in that relationship this week? And then all of a sudden, they'll start going over it. And then the energies and the attitudes change. And then we can breathe. And then, shit you not, end of every set, by the end of every session, there goes the phone, the text goes off. Oh, I just heard from him. Oh, you did? Shocker. Here we are. And it's just like, it's so fun and honorable for me, just even if it's just little things like love, just which love is huge, but it's just cool watching, little moments of people understanding or working tools or helping themselves. Like, I just love to help people help themselves. And I always kind of joke around. I'm like, at the end of the day, like, no one can go to the bathroom for you. No one can like eat for you. No one can get out of bed for you. Like, you got to do all these things yourself. And the greatest relationship we have is the one with ourselves. And it's the only one we have our whole life. Every other relationship, no matter how amazing they are and how much we love them, it's still temporary. You still can only get so close. I always joke around. I'm like, even when you have sex, like it's got to end at some point. Somebody's got to drink some water. Somebody's got to go pee. Like, we've got to separate. Like, it's just, it's this, and then you're in your own perspective and your own vessel. And so there's just so many opportunities to work on these beautiful relationships we have with ourselves and develop more trust and security with them. And I think
Mhm.
at the end of the day, the more people who feel more at peace and trust themselves and this earth and this planet and others a little bit more, then the easier we're going to have an existence together in this world. Anything I can do to help create just a little more peace, even in one person for the day, I believe it's going to have a ripple effect later on. And so I'm always honored to show up for it for those who want to show up for themselves at this time. I
Mm.
needed that, and I know you did. And we get to talk about that a little bit too.
Absolutely. And you said it too, like if you think about times that you've had a really awesome session with a practitioner and you have changed your perspective, you walk away from that healing session better. I mean, how many people that you interact with after that or the week after where you're in a better state of being than you were before the revelation or the change happened? You're literally being nicer and more friendly and a source of light in your life. And that is the ripple effect, right? It could be anything as simple as just smiling to a stranger on the street, or even in this day and age of kind of avoiding things, saying hello to somebody, like any number of little things can happen based on you changing your state of being. And that's another reason I love this work so much, is because the impact doesn't just end with the client. If you've done a good job and the client's ready to do their work, it it goes out into the world, and who knows how many people they're impacting just by being a better person. Who knows how many family members are being impacted, and it just continues to trickle out. It's all energy, right?
It's all energy. And it's like, it's planting the flower, it's the seed. Like, how many times you cook dinner and cut open a pepper or a lemon or something, and there's a bazillion seeds in there.
Mhm.
Like, it's like you give this piece of fruit, you give this piece of knowledge, and then within it is the potential of so much more because then you can pass it on. It's the whole like teach a man to fish thing. And
Mhm.
so I just think that it's so sacred and so honorable to be able to understand these things and then be able to have the grace and the space holding and the ability to share, the seeds that worked for you, that, you were able to harvest in your own garden, that I was able to harvest in my own soul garden that worked for us, and then share it with others and then see what could happen. And at the end of the day, just a smile, just holding the door creates huge change often for so many people. And we come
Mhm.
into our energy. Now, our energy is so, so important. And that energy is created via our feelings and our thoughts and things that
Mhm.
are happening and our actions and our reactions to things. So the more you can practice a pause and choose a response as opposed to just autopilot react to something, you get to actually choose how you're impacting the world at this time. And I
Mhm.
found that to be the most freeing thing that could ever exist.
Yes, it's freeing and it makes you much more interesting.
Right? So much more fun. So I want to hear a little bit more about you and what got you to this path. Maybe we
Sure.
can start even with some of your favorite tools that have helped you to, accomplish where you're at this time, or to keep your level of balance at this time.
Sure. I'm happy to share those things. And before I do, there is something I would like to say about tools that you pick up along the way. And I wonder if this was your experience early on in the path as well. But looking back, I'm a bit of a perfectionist. That's a superpower and a poison, depending on how you use it. I'm still learning that one. But one of the
I like
things,
that. I'm always like greatest strength and weakness right here. I like that superpower and poison.
or medicine or poison, whatever
Yeah.
terminology you want to use. But when I started healing and I started tapping into this greater spiritual reality that is now embedded in my moment to moment existence, there I picked up different tools along the way, and especially early on, I would sort of get attached to the tools. Like I would sort of be like, okay, if I don't meditate, then I'm not going to be, the best I can be. Or if I don't do my mantra every day or something, then I missed out and I'm not going to continue growing. And the reason I wanted to bring this up is because for whoever may be listening, wherever they are on their path, I think it's important to understand that you can use the tools that are presented to you, and you should use the ones that you're interested in that seem like they're going to have an impact. But don't become so attached to them that you miss out on another tool that might come your way or another perspective. And as I've developed on this path, my tools have changed significantly. Certain things that I was doing at the beginning, like I was doing a lot of visualization because I was highly skeptical of anything energy or spirit related. To me, visualization was using my mind, and that made sense to me. I'm like, okay, I can use my mind to initiate a response in my body or in my reality. That made sense to me, right?
Hmm.
And it still does to this day. I haven't put that one down completely. My understanding of it has changed. But the more that I was attached to a certain way of being, discipline has sort of a negative connotation in that it's like something that you just do no matter what, right?
Oh, I love that you're bringing this up.
Yeah, yeah. It's like just because it worked for me for that day or those couple of years doesn't mean that it's the end all be all of my world. I've got to be able to discern what's useful for me, what's not, for when, and for how long. And that's part of the reason Taoism really resonated with me a lot, because as somebody who's cultivated a lot of discipline in my life, and I'm able to try things and just keep doing them, uh, it gave me a little bit more freedom to just be natural and be who I am. And I don't think I would have gotten to this point without the discipline, because I had to make some changes and start growing. And sometimes you have to do things over time with commitment for them to make a lasting change. But what Taoism says is essentially the more natural you can be, the more in alignment with what created all this you can be. And sometimes the tools are necessary and helpful, and other times they may be a hindrance. It's going to have to be up to you to figure out what works for you and what doesn't. So to sum up what I just said, I think the healing path, the path of growth, has a lot to do with just figuring out who and what you are and how you operate in this world. Because what works for you, it might work for me, and I might pick it up because I've seen that it has worked for you, and I'll try it out for a bit. But if it's not 100% true to me, then it's actually not really helping me in the long run. And the only way to figure that out is to try it. So
That's it.
the tools are excellent. We need tools. If we're building a house, we need drills and screws and hammers. If we're building our understanding of what spirit is and of who and what we are, it's useful to use certain tools along the way. But as soon as they're irrelevant, I think it's important to try and drop them and find something that does work for you. And so, there are things that I use, uh, especially nowadays, controlling the breath. The breath is sort of the bridge between our perceived internal world and perceived external world. And by modulating our breath in specific ways, it can change our physiologic expression in the world. It can change how we feel. So that's something that I use myself in various ways and with clients to help them shift their state so that they will be either calmer or more receptive or even just have an experience, because we can get high on our breath.
Mm.
Breath work is definitely something that's resonating pretty strong right now in the past few years. Sitting silently and doing nothing, like a zazen, no mind meditation, I believe is a pretty high level form of meditation, but it's essential. I mean, if you think about our lives, there's a lot happening. There's a lot coming out of us. We're speaking, we're talking, we're acting, we're even dreaming when we're asleep. And that's all the mind at work. The mind is doing something. And we're kind of conditioned from a young age to just keep doing stuff. So if we don't have a period of time in our day where we've dedicated to not doing, it makes sense to me that people get burned out really easily and continue to go on in their lives in a reactive way. Whereas if we dedicate some time to sit silently and just be like, I'm not going to do anything, I'm just going to sit here and allow whatever is, there's a subtle cleansing that happens of your consciousness. There's a relaxation that occurs from all the doing. And for me, that's been something that I've carried pretty much the entire time, and I imagine I will carry with me until I die. Now I just enjoy it. It started off as something that I kind of made myself do and didn't fully understand and wondered if I was doing right, because people say, oh, you've got to stop the mind. And that's not the point of it at all. You can't
Yeah,
stop the
speak on
mind.
that. This is something everyone always needs to hear. What's your version of it?
You can't stop the mind. The more I tap into it, I'm like, okay, these thoughts that come in here, they're not really originating anywhere. It's just like a free flowing of words. And the more I try and stop it, the more it's going to keep going, the louder
Mm.
it's going to get. And, as somebody who's done this work for over a decade, I still only have brief moments of silence, and this no mind meditation. I say that, but the mind is surely present. It knows me better than anybody ever will, because it knows the things that are going to get my attention, and it thrives on attention. So if I
And
can
it's
drop,
keeping you safe. Like it's got to be there to keep you safe in this realm a little, right?
absolutely, we
So
need
hard to turn that off.
we need the mind. We would die without it. It keeps us safe. It allows us to do all these amazing things in these bodies. It's essential. It's a tool. The mind is a tool. We can use it. We can sharpen it. We can strengthen it. All that good stuff. It's not to be discarded. You'd be a crazy person to say you want to get rid of your mind.
Yeah, we don't hear that often, do we?
No, no. But I think there's this huge misconception about what meditation is. It's not trying to stop the mind. It's coming to terms and getting to know your mind. The mind is an expression of who you are. And the more that you can know how your mind works and observe and relax into that working of the mind, the easier it's going to be to go about anything that life throws your way.
I agree. I love it. And same, it's just about getting more still. And for me, it was about witnessing my thoughts and, oh, I don't need to worry about what's for dinner right now. I don't
Mm-hmm.
need to think about the grocery list. I don't need to think about this thing that happened in fourth grade. And then it's like I envision it, letting it go and letting it flow through. And then it's like that's where I found the space in between the thoughts. And then I was realizing the thoughts were coming in a little less and a little less. And then it was creating more space of that openness or that void or the thoughtless moments, which, like Christian said, rare. And we got to have our minds here in Earth School. That's part of our vessel and part of what we brought in. And like you said, and it can be an overactive, out of control tool, or it can be, a really great, amazing one. And these tools, yeah, they're just there to help bring you back into balance, into peace. And you said something that I wanted you to speak more on too. At what point do you share, realize with yourself and with your clients when things are irrelevant? And then how do you give yourself permission to release it or set the tool down or whatever it is?
So the question is, how do I know when it's irrelevant?
Mm-hmm. And then how do you let it be?
Mm-hmm. Well, as somebody who has had a strong background in discipline, it's not an easy thing to do, because once something is working for you, you naturally don't want to set it down, because it's brought you to a place that is different than where you were before. That's great. Keep doing that if it's working. But as soon as it starts to become something that is like, if I don't do this, then I'm not going to be okay. That to me is a signal that it's become imbalanced. Maybe you don't need to drop it completely, but maybe you need to just set it down for a time. I think that would be my advice there, is stop doing it for a week. Stop doing it for 2 weeks. See who you become at that point. And if after that period you still want to do it because you found benefit, then great, keep doing it. But if you stop at that point and you realize, oh, that was something that I was relying on to be me, be the best version of me, then that's maybe a topic that we can go deeper into in a coaching container. Like, oh, why were you attaching yourself to that? Let's figure that out. Is it harming you by continuing to do it? Is it actually hindering your growth because you're so attached to this particular tool or practice? And that is to say, you don't have to set anything down completely. I mean, there are no absolutes in this life. I mean, everything falls on a spectrum, and where you land on that spectrum is going to have to be deciphered by you. There's no 100% one way or another. I think the only thing that should be, or that probably calls for 100% conviction, is when you're making important decisions. Like if you're wavering one way or another on a decision, then you're probably not going to be satisfied with that decision one way or another. But other than that, there are no absolutes, man.
And even that's where I'm like, man, you absolutely made the right decision. Even if it's good or bad, it's for your highest good. You're gonna figure it out. Even if it's like, oh, maybe I could have done it differently. It's still, here we are. It's okay.
Mm-hmm.
That's where it's like I give myself permission. Like, all right, cool. Like we made this decision. Here we are. This is what's happening. Let's just roll with it, as opposed to
Mm-hmm.
regret it, and let's build on it or figure it out, or enjoy it. And we get so scared about, I feel like decisions are where we get, so much magic happens. We have choice in our thoughts and our actions and the tools we use and what we do. We're overthinking that. And so I feel like it's such an opportunity to give yourself freedom and permission and support in so many ways when you do that.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
And yeah, and with I think the feeling part too, with like feeling of things, like tools, I feel like are there to support you when you need it, not like something you have to get, like you were saying, attached to all the time. Like, yeah, we got this beautiful house and this great, shed with all these tools in it, but we don't need to hammer nails every day. Maybe today we need to scrub the bathtub and we're going to need a
Mm-hmm.
different tool. And sometimes we don't need a tool. Sometimes nothing needs to be fixed or broken. Sometimes we don't need to go work, mow the lawn today or work on a certain project. But if it comes up, isn't it nice to have that, power drill or that hammer or whatever it is to support your work? And
Yes.
so, I love tools the most when navigating feelings and triggers and emotions. That's when I like to be like, all right, let me take some breaths. I've got fear coming up. Archangel Michael, please surround me in white and blue light and protect me. Let me go over some things I'm grateful for. Let me, drink, I like celery juice a lot. Let me drink celery juice to, like, cleanse my vessel. Like, I find that all to be helpful tools and support when
Mhm.
needed. But I love how you talked about, not getting addicted or attached to it, because we do. And then sometimes we can become over disciplined with it. And then we're not leaving enough room for flow and creativity and presence.
Mhm. Yes, absolutely. I try and bring more playfulness to everything that I'm learning these days. The more relaxed I can be about these things, the better. As soon as I notice myself starting to put pressure on myself to do it, that's when it's kind of like a red flag for me to be like, okay, like why am I doing this in the first place? How much is it actually helping me? And am I going about it in a way that makes me feel connected? Those are sort of the filters that I will use when I notice myself becoming too disciplined.
I
Yeah.
love that. I love that. So I could talk to you about all kinds of things all day, of course, but I would love it if you could share with us how to get a hold of you and maybe just some of the services you offer, what working with you looks like. I know you have a website and I know you offer coaching services. So what's your website and what are your services all about?
Absolutely. My website is moderndaocoaching.com, moderntaocoaching.com. And right now, the services I offer, which this could probably be a whole other episode, one of them is a guided cannabis experience. I work
We're
with
a fan of
people.
Mama Canna
Oh
at
yeah,
Sea Goddess. She's our seaweed in our logo.
oh yeah. No, she's a wonderful ally and teacher, and I find that she's a safer, lower impact way of having a plant medicine experience. And what I mean by that is engaging with her in an intentional way to discover more about yourself and even heal and move energy. So I
Mm,
create a space for people that allows them to feel safe to go deep within to their bodies and deep within their psyche with the aid of Mama Cannabis. And I help them work through those things so that they can initiate a transformation. That's one of my offerings. Another offering I'm calling Sacred Council, and that is a co-creation of learning and developing your own tools and practices based on what I've been able to learn along the way and what interests you. So those are sort of my two one-off offerings. And then the third thing that I do is I work intentionally one-on-one with people for an extended period of time to help integrate all of this stuff into their life. And that coaching container has coaching as well as these other two offerings included in it, depending on what the client needs. So that is the way in which I serve currently.
I love it. I'm so
Yeah.
grateful you took the time to connect with us and share so much of your energy and your time. And I really want to have you back on Token to talk more about your cannabis connections and what that looks like. Because that was consciousness was a side effect of cannabis that I switched to cannabis as a healing tool in like my mid 20s because I was on round the clock muscle relaxers and painkillers and
Mhm.
all kinds of steroids. And I hadn't really smoked weed or cannabis or anything. And my brothers were like, why don't you try it and see if it helps you get off all these pills? And I was like, okay. And it
Mhm.
was everything changed. And then my side effect was more consciousness and creating more space in order to allow myself to actually do some of the shadow work and create room and space in my mind. It helped me to kind of slow it down a tiny bit and
Mhm.
look at things as opposed to, I was very fight or flight and go, 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 go all the time. And it helped me calm my nervous system greatly on all levels.
Mhm.
So I love that you're doing that and exploring that and creating that container for people.
Yeah, she's such a versatile plant. I mean, she's got all these amazing surface level healing capabilities like pain mitigation and anxiety reduction. And then she's got this really deep consciousness uh, consciousness medicine. And the more that I'm doing this work with other people, the more I'm realizing that that's one of her strongest qualities is when you take that plant into your body, it really summons up everything that's been bubbling underneath the surface. And some people may experience that as anxiety or energy or feeling uncomfortable feelings in their body. And what I've come to find is that she's actually just shining the light on something that's already been there. And the more that you can work through those things that she's shining the light on, the more you can actually enjoy your high.
Mm,
Yeah.
I love that.
Yeah.
And and on that note too, I just, even if it's Mama Canna bringing it up or anything, whenever the light's getting shined on, I always say triggers are opportunities to heal. And
Mm-hmm.
if it's coming up, often it's because you're in a safe enough place consciously to explore it. Might
Mm-hmm.
be crazy. You might be worrying about all kinds of things. Who knows what's going on in your life? But on the conscious level, and the others that want to support and help us and our higher selves and helper beings, they're there to be like, yo, we got this. We can support you, and it's an opportunity, to shine that light in the dark. So I just love holding space with you in this conversation, and it's just been such an honor to witness your journey. Kristian and I worked together at a restaurant. That's how we met. Now we're both, in the healing arts, which is incredible. And I love your wonderful partner, Julia. She's incredible. I've done many past episodes and had incredible talks with her. And she's a sacred space and medicine holder too, who I've been able to talk with about Mama Canna as well. She actually, I'll always remember, she says, it can get too sticky. So you got to be careful because sometimes
Mm-hmm.
it can be a little too sticky. And I've always, remembered that and shared that with people. So I would love to continue this conversation and have you on Token to Talk with me sometime. And I'm just so grateful for everything you're doing and the light you're putting in the world. And thank you for taking time to share with us and with our community.
It's my pleasure. And thank you so much for giving me a platform to speak and just to share. I'm all about raising consciousness and helping others be the best version of themselves they can be. And just the purpose for that is just so you can enjoy life more. So here's to enjoying life more and continuing on this path. I'd be happy to come back on.
Absolutely. Thank you again. Take care.
Thank you.